I'm Craig Stevens, and you're watching Composure Under Fire.
Hey travelers, welcome back to a new video. Travelers, if you're interested in archaeology and using archaeology as a way to travel the world and learn about past cultures and people, this video is for you. Travelers, we have the amazing opportunity to talk with Craig Stevens, who is a doctoral student at Northwestern University. And not only does Craig have one master's, but he has 2 master's degrees and he was a Marshall Scholar. Travelers, in this video, we talk about all things archaeology and you do not want to miss it, including how do you actually become an archaeologist, what is the day in the life of one, and one cool thing about Craig is that he uses technology to fuse the past with the future to make the past more accessible. Travelers, we get into it all. Before we begin this video, make sure you subscribe and check out the link in my description box below for a free e-course where I designed an e-course where you can learn all things about international affairs careers and how to travel boldly with confidence. All right, travelers, let's begin. So Craig, thank you for joining us. And first we'll begin with, what is your story? How did you become interested in archaeology and why are you pursuing a doctorate in archaeology?
Okay, cool. I had the pleasure of joining an archaeological dig before I knew that I was interested in archaeology. Oftentimes in undergrad, faculty will do things called field schools, which are a way to bring people in to get experience with archaeological methods before they're necessarily an archaeologist or have been on multiple excavations. So I had a friend who was a classics major and they were doing a dig in Italy, in Puglia, in southern Italy. And he invited me just as he wanted me to join him. And he knew that the professor would allow it and he thought I would enjoy it. So I did. I went with him and it was a very romantic start to archaeology. So this was a Roman site. So you're digging very deep into the ground because you're looking 1,000, 2,000 years ago. And the artifacts that you're pulling out are very dramatic, like big, huge vases, like the remnants of a Colosseum, big dyeing factories, very romantic kinds of things when you think about archaeology. So that kind of gave me a bug. But really what struck home for me was that we found a mosaic. And because of the types of stones that were used, they're called tesserae, the small stones that make up a mosaic, and the pattern, what was depicted, we were able to trace the craftsmen that made that to Africa. So in my head, I was never imagining that people who were facilitating the art, the luxury for the Roman Empire were actually African artists. And so being able to look at material evidence as a way to reintegrate the way that we think about African and Black creation of the world and participation, especially in places like Rome or Greek, these Hellenistic cultures that often aren't associated, they're more seen as the ancestors to European civilization, but to see how Africa was very integrated into that the entire time. And when we think about places like Egypt, Great Zimbabwe, the Mali Empire, we know that there's African civilizations that were thriving, but to see that these African, it was actually North African workshops and craftsmen were facilitating the luxurious life of Rome, it inspired me to pursue archaeology as a means of complicating the history of Africa and its participation in the creation of civilization. So that started a path of belief in archaeological methods. And continuing down, I had some great advisors that encouraged me to go to grad school, and that's how it started.
Did you ever think you would be where you are today?
No, I did not think I would be where I am today. I think I didn't actually have the ability to imagine the kind of life that I live now. Grad school wasn't really on my radar. I somehow convinced my parents, my mother, that it was okay for me to study anthropology. She had a lot of questions about if that was a worthwhile pursuit, use of money and use of time. So it was justified by, I'm just going to law school, Mom. Like, don't worry, I'm gonna go to law school. This is something that's gonna make me competitive in my law school applications. And it was really just a means to kind of get her off my back with that, because anthropology was really the only thing that inspired me academically for a long time. And so I just knew that was probably the smartest thing for me to study in undergrad if I wanted to be successful. But in terms of grad school or PhD, I never understood the framework of it. It was never on my radar. I think I just had some experiences in undergrad that made me conceptualize a research project in Liberia. And when I started talking with that about advisors that I had, I was lucky to have some great mentors in my undergrad, and they encouraged me that this is something that would be very successful as a dissertation, as doctoral research.
If someone is watching this video and they're interested in pursuing anthropology or archaeology, but they don't necessarily have the family support, what are some of the things that you would say that could help convince their family members that this is a good move?
So one thing that helped my mom was she saw the wide use of anthropology. So Facebook, a lot of these tech companies employ a lot of anthropologists because we specialize in humanity, of human behavior, human interaction, past, present, and conjectures of what will happen in the future. So that's really useful for a lot of tech companies, not even just tech companies, but companies that have close contact with humans, or they're trying to create some product that augments or makes use of human behavior. So to see that people could be profitable if they were able to pitch themselves for what their skill set would bring value to a company or to an organization, I think that's maybe a useful way to think about how you can spin it to your parents and say it's all right. But it's difficult because a lot of times certain communities are sacrificing a lot to put their children into school, and often we're associating that with the payoff. And it's not very clear the career trajectory that leads you to a high paying salary when you're getting an undergraduate. When you're getting a BA in anthropology, there's actually no historically Black colleges or universities that have that I'm aware of. I think there's maybe one. I think maybe Spelman is anthropology and sociology, but I'm not aware of any degree granting historically Black colleges or universities that have BA in anthropology. I think Howard was the last one. Yeah, it's not easy. But volunteering, I'm a fan of volunteering to get your skills and to get experience. So I volunteered with Montgomery Parks Association for the field school, actually paid to go join that project in Italy. So I know the conversation around unpaid labor, unpaid internships is contentious and it's complex, and people are coming from different positions all the time. And oftentimes you definitely need to get paid for the time that you spend. But if you do have some time where you could join a cause and dedicate your labor to something in exchange for getting experience and skills, I always recommend that to people. It's been a strategy that was successful for me.
How does someone become an archaeologist?
So there's different roles that archaeologists play. There is the academic role. So you get a PhD, you join a department at a university or college, and you teach classes. And then during the summer breaks, you're able to have time to go research. So there's one stereotypical way is to do the academic route. There's also something called cultural resource management, which, if I'm not mistaken, employs the vast majority of archaeologists, because these are people who come and analyze the cultural relevance of a location before it is built upon. So if they're building a highway, there's laws that codify the process. They're building a highway, they're building a shopping mall, a parking lot. Archaeologists have to come in and do a survey to make sure that they're not building on top of any culturally sensitive or important materials. And so I believe you can do that kind of work with just the bachelor's, if I'm not mistaken. I'm not sure you can be a director for those projects, but you definitely can join a cultural research management unit and begin a career as an archaeologist. And then there's also some curators in museums, if they specify on archaeological materials or historic exhibitions and curation. At times, they're also archaeologists as well. But I would say those are the three most standard ways of joining that industry.
What are some characteristics of a good archaeologist? Well, that will make somebody a good archaeologist or anthropologist.
In Craig's opinion, yeah.
So your opinion.
Critical thinking is definitely like the willingness, if not the instinct, to question things that may seem simple. I think good archaeologists and anthropologists welcome complexity and they welcome nuance. If something seems like it fits really nicely in your brain of how a system works, it's probably something that's worth digging deeper into and asking questions about why and how and who and when. Definitely, and not just an intuition, or not just an instinct to do that, but also an enjoyment of that process to to critically engage a topic, to understand the past, what very bright and intelligent people, despite whatever socialization they had that may reek of colonialism or racism or misogyny, it's still useful to see how those people were looking at the thing that you're looking at, to reorientate yourself, to ground yourself in your individual perspective, or to build upon their shoulders and to say something more critical that does serve those communities that are being oppressed or overlooked. So I think good anthropologists, the crucial aspect is a desire and an enjoyment of asking critical questions.
What is the training like to become someone in your field?
So archaeologists do a lot of different kinds of things. I'm what's most typically thought of as a field archaeologist, a historical archaeologist. So I typically work in time periods that have also a written record associated with it. So where I work in Liberia, it's 1822 to mid-1900s, things were being written the entire time. People will work on Bronze Age, Iron Age sites, Neolithic sites that are thousands of years old, and there's not people also writing about their experience as you're looking at the evidence of their experience. So there's a range of methods on those spectrums, but also in terms of lab technicians. There's people who are specializing in the dating of objects, or specializing in the chemical processes that created certain kinds of sediments, geological processes. So there's a wide range, and kind of where you would start from, and that is what kinds of questions you're interested in. Are you interested in the way that diet changed over time? Are you interested in the way that agriculture has been affected by climate change and new susceptibility to drought? Are you interested in how people created their homes, what kind of art people were making, how people were experiencing music before speakers or things? So there's a wide range. Sometimes it's lab training, sometimes it's archival training, oftentimes it's field training, learning how to excavate, learning how to take notes. Sometimes it's artistic. There's people who have made careers off of drawing artifacts and drawing landscapes and collaborating with archaeologists to visualize their data and their interpretation. So archaeology, I guess even less so than anthropology even larger, but archaeology and anthropology are definitely broad terms to describe a lot of different people doing different kinds of things, but similarly interested in, for anthropology, humanity, human behavior, and for archaeology, humans' relationship to materials, to the material world.
What does your average day look like?
I spend a lot of time in my lab. So one of my research initiatives is to translate archaeological data through creative and immersive experiences or creative products. So I'm working a lot in virtual reality, augmented reality. I'm trying to, and also make close collaborations with artists, choreographers, visual artists, graphic designers, musicians, to talk about their heritage and their history and their past in ways that exist outside of the standard kind of journal procedure or writing academic articles. So my lab, I have a photogrammetry studio, which allows me to take material objects and create 3D digital models out of them that I can then share virtually with people. I'm working on creating some virtual exhibitions that use this process. So I like to spend 6 hours in the lab if I can, 9 to 3, 9 to 4, depending on if I take a lunch break or how long the lunch break is. And then when I come home, I like to read, but I like to do something creative. I like to edit a video. I like to make some music. I play the bass or go on a walk or exercise. And then usually by the end of the night, I just like to chill out. Sometimes I'll watch TV or I'll play a video game. To be honest, I really like to give myself some time to turn my brain off, because I'm wired to work. It actually, sometimes it's hard for me to stop working, and I know that that's not sustainable. So I try to find ways to not turn off the thinking, but just put me on a vibration that is more easy to rest. So I like to end my day by resting. Hopefully I get to bed early enough to wake up around 6, 7, definitely before 8 if I can, by the next day.
Did anything surprise you as you started? About archaeology?
Yes. So when I told you about my experience in Italy, I was really inspired by the evidence that material provides. So you can't tell me that Africa wasn't crucial to the development of Rome, because I got the evidence. Like, this is, you can't write a book and say your opinion as fact when I have material evidence. And I got really obsessed with that kind of thought. And then as I progressed in archaeology, I realized that we are creating narratives just like anybody else. We are individuals with our own socializations, our own biases, who are going and carrying those to wherever in the country, our state, or our world that we're researching. And just because there is material that is inspiring our convictions and our interpretations does not mean that they're not still subjective interpretations. And so at first I was kind of balking at archaeology. I was like, okay, I'm not even trying to be an archaeologist anymore because y'all just doing everything else that everybody else is doing, but you kind of have this arrogance of science behind you that makes it even worse. At least other people know they're making it up. And then I kind of came back around and was like, okay, how about I just practice archaeology as an artist then, since we're creating, we are building these narratives from our personalities and from the research and the work and the practices and the expertise that we've developed, just like a master painter, just like a ceramicist, just like a choreographer. They're trying to express a message, a narrative through their methods. And believe it or not, that's what archaeologists are doing too. I don't know how many archaeologists are in your audience. Maybe they'll be in the comments and we'll disagree, but I think that archaeology is a creative process. I'm convicted upon that now. And I didn't know that at the beginning. I actually thought the exact opposite, which was what attracted me to it. And funny enough, I'm still here, even though I no longer think that's true.
If someone is interested in being an archaeologist, what are some resources that they can look into?
The Society of Black Archaeologists, it's an organization that seeks to provide resources, guidance, mentorship, fellowship for Black African diasporic and African folks who are interested in getting in archaeology, or they already are archaeologists and they're searching for ways to tap in and meet colleagues and collectively develop and build. We also are seeking to be an authoritative voice for the interpretation of the material culture of Africa and its diaspora. We're seeking to be an organization that people can come to, like, oh, we have this article we're trying to write. Who is the specialist that works in this area? And we're able to kind of be a group that can focus that or to build up funds and grants that can help support objects that align with our missions and things. So especially if you're a Black African diasporic African and interested in getting to archaeology, I would definitely say get in contact with the Society of Black Archaeologists. Society of Black Archaeologists, you can search us anywhere for that. We're on Google. We have a website, we're on Instagram, Facebook, all that, Twitter, so you can find us.
What is the Marshall Scholarship?
Okay, yeah, the Marshall Scholarship is a fellowship that sends students from the United States to go study in the United Kingdom for 2 or 3 years. It was created to acknowledge the relationship that was established between America and the United States after the World War, when America developed or contributed a lot of economic resources for the rebuilding of Europe after they were devastated after the World War. This was created by the UK government as a thank you to George Marshall, who was the American general, I believe, who led that process of rebuilding Europe. So it's a way to continue to keep the relationship vibrant between American academics and UK institutions and the academics in those institutions. So it was a fellowship that allowed me to go study in the UK for 2 years. I did 2 master's degrees. I did one in archaeology at the University College London and another in museums, heritage and material culture studies at SOAS, the School of Oriental and African Studies. And it changed my life. Truly, it was one of the most amazing experiences, gave me a lot of community and allowed me to take some time to develop Craig as an individual that was able to enter the academic space as somebody with kind of refined vision of what they're pursuing. It was fantastic. I would highly suggest people apply to the Marshall Scholarship if you're eligible.
Do you have any application tips or any interview tips for someone who might be interested?
If you are blessed to have a merit awards office or some kind of scholarships office at your university, make use of it, because I strongly benefited to Liz Romig and Paula Warwick at American University, who went through just about every line. Not just about, literally every word of my application multiple times with me to make sure that I was expressing myself most clearly, most dynamically about what my intentions were and what I saw for my future and why I thought I was a good fit for this opportunity So really having editors that get where you're coming from and are willing to put in time. And so the reason why I say it's great to use your university resources, because those people are paid to do that. So you don't have to worry about taking too much time from one of your friends or a mentor to read over all these things. But if you can find somebody who this is their job, it made me competitive. So shout out American University and those people that I named for that. And also just mentors, people like send those emails to try to get somebody who's doing the thing that you're doing to give you some feedback on how you're pursuing your journey. So just asking for help and taking it when it's offered.
What's next?
I believe I'm pursuing a career as a curator, but I'm really interested in creating a space that can encourage collaborations between what is thought of as researchers and artists to be able to create products together. I think I would like to develop an institution that prioritizes data visualization through creative process. So okay, you did biochemical research. How could you express that through a play? Or you're a physicist. What if a R&B song was made about the gravitational fields that you're investigating? Or an archaeologist, what if a video game was made off of the research that you've done? So I'd really like, once I'm done with the PhD, to propose that to an institution that's receptive, if that's a university or a museum that would host fellowships or like residencies for artists and researchers to collaborate on creative data visualization. And so that's what's coming quite clearly to me these days. So I think that's probably the thing I'm going to be trying to pitch to people who want me to work for them, to allow me to start developing a research center with that specific. And so next, I'm gonna get my PhD, I'm gonna finish it, and then I'm gonna try to do something innovative, I guess.
All right, travelers, that concludes today's video. First, I wanna say thank you so much, Craig, for being part of today's episode of Composure Under Fire and sharing your experiences with us today. Travelers, be sure to let me know in the comment section below who you would like to hear from next. If you haven't already, be sure to check out the link in the description box below about the free e-course. You don't want to miss it. And if you haven't already, be sure to subscribe if this video has brought value to your life. Until next time, travelers, let's travel with our dreams together. See you later. Bye-bye.